Hi everyone, thank you for joining today. Amanda gave the description of this event. Basically, we'll take a look at how to, let me bring the next slide. The agenda will, of course, bind the grid. We'll start from scratch. We'll apply theming and look at how we can change that at runtime. We'll look at the exporting and printing options, and we'll serialize it. And then we'll move on to serialize the view of the grid. We'll move on to questions. Basically, this is what it will look like when it's done. Let me bring this over here. All right, so when the application is implemented, this is what we want it to look like. So this is, a standard grid bound to the sample Northwind database. Nothing exciting here. I have some custom columns set up, and I have a drop-down box up here that shows that lets me change the themes at runtime. So I would select deep blue, for example, and you'll see that the theme is applied to all the controls. And you'll notice that, for example, these are standard Silverlight controls. These aren't our button. These aren't DevExpress buttons. These are the standard common controls that ship with Silverlight. And these are themed as well as when I select a new theme, right? So the next thing we want to do is we want to implement the printing functionality. Now this is using our DX window control just to show how you can have this embedded and used and actually have a resource intensive and a complex and advanced control built into it. So this actually is, there's the print preview control, there's the print preview, and this will give us the exporting options right out of the box. And then we have the save layout and load layout option features, which I will show you later when it's actually implemented and we're back up and running with this. So to get started, I'll just start from scratch with a new instance of Visual Studio. So this may seem, since we're doing a few different things, this may seem like it's a little difficult to follow because some of these things don't really have much to do with one another. But if you're lost, halfway through it, make sure. This will be available as a recording, so make sure you can watch this again, and then there'll also be this project file so you can look at the code for yourself. And let's go ahead and add the layout control one more time. Layout control for to load. Okay, and then let's add the combo box edit. Add the button. There we go. Now we're talking. All right, so 3 buttons. There's my combo box. I'll use this for the themes, as you saw in the finished application. And then I'll use these 3 for print preview, save layout, and load layout. So next, let me add the grid control here as well while I have these open. So data, grid control. And what I need to do is, let's change the orientation to vertical. These actually here. Create a group. And there. All right, so I'll have this be aligned to the left, and these be aligned to the right. So they're separated just like in our final application. Right in the center, so it looks a little nicer. And the grid control, I'll say, fill in the rest of the area. So this is our infrastructure that we just built. So let's go ahead and quickly name these. This would be the print preview, I believe this one was. Right, and then this one would be, actually, let's set some sizes for these. This will be also 150. Should have selected and done them at the same time, but let's see, save layout. And this one will be load layout. Load layout. $50. Okay, so this is all set up. We'll need to set this to be theme as well. Let's see. There we go. Theme. Cool. Now let's rebuild this, make sure all is well, and let's go ahead and add the data source and bind this grid to data. So since I'm doing RIA services, what I'll do is I'll be spending most of my time in here. So I'll go ahead and add a new data entity model, right? And I'll just keep the simple products model. Right, so I'm generating it from the database, and it is going to be, already have this set up from the sample Northwind database, which I have running on a local SQL Server Express instance on my machine here. So I'll say next. I don't need to pluralize or singularize anything, so I'll open up the table, select the products table. Northwind model is fine. Click finish. And it will create the model here. So let's close this, rebuild the solution so I can access it when I add the domain service. Okay, add new item again. Now data, no, not data, web. And scroll down, there is the domain service class. Now I'll call this actually product service. Right, product service, and I wanted to use the products entities. Click on OK. And this is set up. Rebuild this one more time. Okay, so we are almost there. So the grid control, I can have it, for the sake of this example, I'll say the auto-populate column, so it creates the columns automatically. And then I'll set the auto-width property of the table view so the columns are resized accordingly, so it fits in here in the grid control. So let's switch to code view and quickly add the code. Well, first let me add the using statements. I'll just copy paste from the other application so we don't spend too much time in this code because we got a lot of other things we need to do. And it's not sandbox, it's SL webinar demo 2. Yes, it is. Excellent. So let's create the product context. Here, let's populate the grid with this. So let's run this and make sure it is bound and it is populated with data properly, and then we can proceed to the other cool stuff. All right, so here it is. It's the default theme, light gray. Right, it's populated with the data. So we need to set up theming, print preview, and layout serialization. We'll be using isolated storage, Silverlight isolated storage for this example. So let's go back and let's see, what do we start working with first? Let's do theming first. All right, so for theming, what I will be doing here is I'll need to first add a few assemblies, so I get access to the themes. Right, so I'll scroll down and here they are. Make sure it's the correct version, of course. So I'll hold down Control and select all of them. Right, and click OK. And they are added to the project. Excellent. I'll need to reference XPF core. All right, so just to quickly, how do you apply a theme? You know, before to everything in the application. So the way you do that is you use the theme manager application theme, and in this case I'm setting it equal to Office 2007 Blue. So when I run this right now as it stands, it will go ahead and populate, not populate, wrong word. We'll go ahead and apply the theme to all the controls in this application. See, the standard control, the combo box, and the grid control. So this way we have a theme to start out with. Of course, you can have code implemented to read this off of a settings file and such, but for this I'll have this theme as my starting theme, and then what I will do is I'll use a method here to just simplify this a bit and go ahead. I'll use a populate themes method, right? And I'll go ahead and call this method from here. Right now, theme combo box. I had not named the other one, so the actual combo box here. So let's go ahead and name that. Select it and theme combo box. It's easier than naming these. So we're good to go there. Theming is implemented. Well, I mean the combo box is loaded. And what I need to do is I need to make sure the theme is changed every time the combo box is every time a new theme is selected inside the combo box. So how I'll do that is I'll use the selected index changed event of the combo box. Right, so double click, create a new event, and I'll add this code in here. So whatever item selected, it'll put this in here. Now you'll notice that after we add these items, we have one selected by default. So this sort of makes this part redundant, but you see how you can apply it in both ways. You can apply it before everything's initialized manually through code, or you can, of course, set this, and once it's selected, it'll apply the theme as well. So let's go ahead and run this and see how this works. And as soon as the application loads, there we go. Okay, so we have our Office 2007 Blue theme applied, right? And here we have the combo box. You see the default theme selected here, and I have the drop down. I can select say deep blue, and it will go ahead and apply the theme to the application, to all the components in the application. All right, so this is implemented successfully, and I can change it to another one. Light gray would be the default theme, and as soon as it's applied to everything. All right, so let's go back to the application and take a look at the print preview function that we were going to implement. So essentially, the way this is going to work is we're going to have the print preview button invoke a DX window control, and that will be used. That will host the preview dialog. So to do that, I'll actually go ahead and do this through XAML so I can have some nested stuff going on. So let's scroll up here. Let's make some room. I don't think I had the XPF code referenced up here. I don't think I have anything that uses it yet. Let's just organize this and make sure. I don't. Excellent. So let's add this. This is where the X window resides, right? And I will put that right outside the layout control. Now this is because I don't want this to be visible at design time. I actually want this to be visible and used, actually invoked when the button is clicked with the print preview control. So I have a DX window, I gave it a name, print preview window, and I have some, properties. Users can size it at runtime, give it some animation, a fade animation to pop up, default width and height, and so on. Standard options, really. Right. So when I switch to design view, you'll see it's being displayed right underneath the layout control. So we don't need to work with this in design time, really. So that's we're fine with that. So let's double click the print preview button to bring this up. And what I'll do is I'll actually create another method here just to keep things a little clean and more organized to do this. So what I need, here I've added the code, right? I need to have a using statement for printing and one for data nodes. All right, so I can go ahead and call this in here, right? And I know if you're familiar with this, you might be spotting an error, something that I missed so far, although I am going to let that in there because from a blog post I had a while back, I discovered that this can be a very common error. So what's happening is here, we're creating the preview window, the document preview, and I'll skip over the error purposely, and we are, linking it with the model, which is in this case coming from the grid controls view up here, and then we are populating the DX window control with our preview control, right? And then we're generating the preview. So let's go ahead and run this to show the preview, and then we'll look at what that error, what that mistake was that I've left in there on purpose. And it's quite obvious as soon as you try to do a specific action. All right, so here I have the grid again, click on print preview, and the window comes in. Of course, you can have less columns formatted, so it fits. I have way too many columns for my page size right now. And you can see that it's being shrunk to fit as much as possible, but of course there's too much data. So we'll ignore this for now. But see, the print preview is generated, so this is fine. We are on the right track. However, a print preview isn't really, that exciting. You need to be able to print it or export it. So for the sake of simplicity here, since you can't really see my printer working in this demo, I'll click to export it to PDF file, right? So I'll leave everything as the default. I'll go to, I'll just put it in here and I'll call it test, right? And there's an error. The remote server returned an error not found. This is because, let's go back to the code. This is the error. See, I need an export service running on the server. In this case, when I launch the application, and this was, of course, not there. So while it can display the preview, so if you essentially don't need any export options, you don't need this. But since I needed to export it or even to print it out, I need something like this running on the server. So for this, what I will do is go ahead and new item. Let's go ahead and Silverlight enabled export service. Right, I'll leave the same name. So this is part of extra reports, but of course, since our Silverlight component, our grid is sold as part of the experience for Silverlight, the subscription, this comes part of it and is included. So if you're a customer of our Silverlight subscription, you don't need to go out and buy extra reports. Additionally, to get this feature, it's all already included, and you'll have these templates as well. So I have the export service. Pretty much at this point, I don't need to do anything else. I'm all set. Right? So let's go ahead and run this one more time. And make sure the PDF gets generated, exported, saved, and the printing system fulfills its purpose. So I'll click on Print Preview. Preview generated. So that's the resizing feature, is sizable property that I had set, so we can actually do this. And we'll say let's export to a PDF file. Okay. My empty test, my failed experiment last time is still there, so we'll overwrite this. Yes, let's replace it. And it is replaced. Let's go ahead and bring this up. I'm doing this on my second monitor, which is why you don't see me browsing to that folder at the moment. And here's the PDF file. Bring this over here. Right, so you'll see our columns being cut off, but rest continues on the second page. But of course, this all, you can customize the view for a printable version. This is just to show you how to get this exported and printed. And you can, of course, email it directly from within the application as well. So, printing is out of the way. Now let's take a look at serializing this layout. Now, what do we mean by serializing the layout? Quite simply, if I'm a user who does, let's pick something, who does this constantly, this is probably not the best thing to group by, but if I'm working on such a screen every day, then if you're creating an application for a business app for a department that does this every day, and that's all they need to see really, even though it's a simple task, right? Or if it's a complex view, this is how they need to start every time. When they do this and they refresh or come in the next day, what will happen, of course, is we are back to the default view, right? So the way they had left this before wouldn't be there when they come back. So layout serialization lets us to save any customizations, any modifications we've done in the view, as well as any filtering criteria, conditions, and so on that we've applied. So of course, this can be done automatically, when you're doing a certain task, and you have a logout button in a business application, so it saves it when you log out to a certain profile or anywhere else into a database. But for simplicity in this demo, I'll just use these two buttons, and I will save it to the Silverlight isolated storage. So let's close the export service. We're done with that one. Let's go back to our designer, and let's create a click event for save and a click event for load. All right, so for save, here is what we are going to do. First and foremost, we are going to, again, keep this really simple. I'll scroll up here, and I'll specify the file name and the folder name, which we'll have in our isolated storage for the Silverlight application. So if you need to call it through code from somewhere else, you have a static file name. Again, all of this can be automated in a nicer fashion, just keeping it simple for the demo. You'll probably get tired of me saying that disclaimer every time. So save the layout. All right, obviously I'm missing a bunch of stuff here. So system IO isolated storage, right? And that is it. So what are we doing here? We find out, we get the user store, right? And we make sure we check to see if the folder, that grid layout folder that we had specified up there, if that already exists. If it doesn't, we'll create it. Now, we'll set the full path. We'll create a path for the file name that will include the folder name and the file name, and then using that path to create a file stream, isolated storage file stream, we'll use the save layout to stream function method of the grid control to save it to the isolated storage. So you can actually use this to save it anywhere. You can pop up a window, open file dialog, and ask the user, hey, where do you want me to save this? And it'll of course save that to the desired location locally, or you can feed this into a database. So it's consistent. Every time they log in, it's there. They don't need to worry about manually saving everything every time, which is most likely the case with business applications. And here it is to load it. Again, we're following the same thing. I probably need system IO for this. Yes. and we're following the same manner, except we're not creating any folders, right? And we're using the reverse of this method, restore layout from stream, and we're passing on the file stream. All right, so let's go ahead and run this and try to customize the view. Wait for it to come back up. There it is. Okay, so grouping is quite easy, right? So I can group by this. And furthermore, what I would like to do, let's see. Let's show products that cost more than $12. Of course, I could format this properly, but so filter editor unit price is greater than 12, right? So automatically the one that was 10 went away, and now we have the filter condition down here as well. Let's sort by the product ID. Well, this doesn't work because it's grouped already, so let's take off the sort. Let's leave it as is right now. So we have a group. We have it grouped by the product name column, and we have a filter condition, unit price greater than 12 applied to the view. So go ahead and save the layout to isolated storage. Now, refresh it. We are back to the default view when it loads. There we are. Nothing we applied is there. So I'll click on Load Layout, and we have our grouping and our filter condition applied down there, right? So you can automate this, and the user can leave the office when they're using your business application, come back the next day, and everything is there as just like how they left it, in terms of, you know, if they were working on a project and filter down to a specific criteria, and they need to pick up where they left off. So with that, it wasn't in the original title. I had planned to show you some of the localization stuff as well. However, this wasn't the appropriate application for it, and that would turn out to be a separate project in itself. So I'm dividing that up into another upcoming webinar, and we'll cover localization in more in depth in another webinar. So I mean, with that, pretty much this concludes the demo section. Let me see, my PowerPoint disappeared. There we go. So any questions? I noticed something blinking earlier. Apparently that has been answered.
It was answered, but you just get a new question from Carl. Is it possible to alternate row colors in the grid or design your own theme?
You can have different row colors. You can have conditionally. You can either have it be conditionally, or you can have custom row background colors. Design your own theme. We are working on a theme editor for this year for these upcoming releases. So I don't have too much details to give out on that, but it'll provide you with a better way to design your own themes for our Silverlight components, as well as WPF.
Okay, that's our only question so far. If you all do have questions, get them in now. We'll wait, just for a few minutes to see if there's anything.
Sure, absolutely. And in the meantime, you know, word from our sponsors. I love it.
Our sponsor being me.
Of course.
All right, so next week, the DevExpress team will be at Dev Connections in Orlando. Emil, are you going to be in Orlando?
Absolutely. I hear we're having thunderstorms over there when we're at Dev Connections. So.
Oh, so you're leaving rain in LA for rain in Florida?
Pretty much. I mean, well, rain plus thunder, I guess.
But we are still doing live webinars next week. So a quick peek into that. Next Monday, Julian is back with the final installment on JavaScript. This webinar will dive into writing good JavaScript and assumes that you've watched his previous 3 webinars. And if you haven't, you can, of course, watch them at tv.devexpress.com. It's JavaScript 1 through 3. And next Tuesday, March 29th at noon Pacific Standard Time, Advanced Code Rush Plugins, Text Commands, String Providers, and Context Providers with Mark Miller and Roy Becker. Next Wednesday, March 30th at 10 a.m., End User Designer Localization with our reporting evangelist, Seth Juarez. Learn how to localize your end user report designer. In a global economy, it's essential that we accommodate all of our users. This session will describe the process of localizing the end user report designer to suit your international needs. And next Thursday, DevExpress welcomes back Oliver Sturm, complete tour of DevExpress ORM, Express Persistent Objects, and XPO. This webinar is a complete round trip of XPO, the Express Persistent Objects, the object relational mapping tool made by DevExpress. A quick introduction and overview will kick things off, followed by information on best practices and usage patterns, the unit of work, querying techniques, caching, and XPO publication. All right, so that's all of our webinars for next week, and we do have a whole bunch of webinars that are going to be put up later today or tomorrow on the devexpress.com/webinars page, so you can go there to register.
Absolutely, and the project, the code, and the content for this webinar, I mean the recording version for this will be available later, and I'll also put up the project, so if you want to look at the code yourself firsthand, you can do so as well. And you know, if you have any feedback, as always, any questions, there's my blog and there's my email address. Shoot me an email, let me know, and you know, if you have any ideas, we can, or any questions even, you know, we can work together and you know, get those answered.
Great. Well, it doesn't look like we have any more questions, so with that, I guess we'll wrap it up.
Excellent. All right. Thanks, everyone, and see you next time, I guess.
Awesome. Thanks, Emil. Thank you all for joining us, and thanks for choosing DevExpress.